Hi everyone, welcome to Life Tips by Ning. In today's video, I'm sharing how to analyze the Bazi chart. If your daily master is a Yin Water called Gui in Chinese, looking like this, born in the fall season. Because the main element for fall season is metal, and the relationship between metal and water is metal grows and supports water. So fall-born Yin Water people have this very lucky kind of predisposition of something super strong supporting yourself. So the original state is you wouldn't be super weak to begin with, because the most important element in your Bazi chart is a friendship, is somebody who supports you. So that's a very good precondition. And in terms of personalities, because this metal also translates into this nurturer 10 spirit, right? So this person tend to have a very elegant disposition about them. They like to learn things. They like to keep themselves constantly challenged and learning with new information and skills. And but I think the downside is because out of the 5 elements, both water and metal belong to the colder side, whereas wood and fire belongs to the hotter side. So they might give out the vibe of kind of unapproachable or being cold. That doesn't necessarily mean deep down they're not willing to help people or fighting for the right cause. That's not the case at all. It's just I'm purely talking about the first impression they give out people. Not necessarily mean deep down they're very cold or they're not willing to help others. In terms of favorable element, meaning what would be the best situation that will show up in the remaining 6 positions, 6 available spots in your Bazi chart to make it a good chart, right? So before I dive into the details, my main takeaway for today's video is analyzing Bazi. The first 101 foundational step is you have to derive all this analysis based on the core traits and like characteristics of this daily master. Because Yin Water is this very clean, pretty stream flowing through the forest, it's not like a Yang Water, like a big ocean or gushing, rushing river, that it can tolerate some mud being blended, because that's not what Yang Water is about. Yang Water is about the gust, the strength behind this strong flow of a large volume of water. Whereas Yin Water is all about being pure, being pretty, being not contaminated. So by default, Yin Water just naturally doesn't like a lot of earth showing up in their bazi, because it just makes it muddy. Even though in the situation where your daily master is quite strong, meaning your bazi has a lot of like either metal or water elements showing up, making this little stream flow super fast, or maybe it's a little big river. Even in that case, technically there are 2 options to decide the favorable element, right? One is to introduce the element that suppress myself, which is earth, to keep myself back in this balanced state. And the other option is to use wood and fire, because those are like takes my own energy to produce them, and they can also bring me down to a balanced state. But in this case, because of Yin Water's core foundational characteristics, option 2 is just a way better solution than using earth in this case, because it just makes it muddy and loses beauty of being clean and pure. So coming back to individual months, this birth month of August, which is a Yang Metal birth month, if that's the case, you actually, the number one thing you want to see in your chart is a fire element. Actually, I did it wrong. It should be a yin fire, because going back to the same message of you have to understand the core traits of each element. Because this Yang metal, it's a really rough, unrefined, big, massive piece of metal. It can produce water. But compared to Yin Metal, which is a more refined, delicate, precious metal, they're different in terms of their efficiencies and how much they can produce and grow water. So in the Yang Metal case, Yin fire is the best way to refine and make it kind of get rid of the waste materials around this metal, so it can expose the core of this metal, and it can actually make it produce water in a more efficient way. And in addition, because Yang Metal does its job of growing water, so you want to see a fire element to balance the charge, so it's not like super strong and make the daily master off the chart strong. Fire is a good element to bring it back in balance. That's a rationale for using Yin fire. On the condition this Yin fire showed up and is have a really good strength, that's a really good sign of you have a balanced and great Bazi chart. So for example, you have a Yin fire at position number 4 and have another fire type of earthly branch, either 8 or 7, like supporting it, like not super far removed. That's a good sign to make this preferred fire element useful. But in the situation where you only see one fire floating on the top and none of those bottom row element have any fire's chi in there, in that case, you want to settle for wood, especially young wood, because wood supports and grows fire. So that's another alternative to achieve this goal of strong enough Yin fire in your chart. But moving to the month of September, because it's a Yin Metal, it's a pure Yin Metal month, it's not, you don't have this issue of having a big chunk of unrefined metal that we're talking about, make it usable to kind of make it the growth and support rate super productive. This guy is quite productive. Because it's very pure, but because it's a very delicate, like a gold, Yin Metal naturally. So again, going back to the core foundation and traits of each element. When I talk about the metal series, right? If you guys remember, Yin Metal naturally likes to be paired with water because that's how we use water to sift through the little river to find gold in the riverbed. So Yin Metal's natural friend is to be paired with water. That's why, like, if your earthly branch, position number 6, is a Yin Metal, a really cool sign is you have another Yin Metal showing up on the top row like position, especially 1 or 2. And that makes the Yin Metal's chi super strong and pure. And it'll do the best, optimal job of sustainably producing and growing this water and keep this river flowing and keep it clean. Yang fire is a secondary guy because, as I said, like metal and water, out of the 5 elements, they're on the very cold camp, right? They're cold and wet. Too much of it might create some health problems if you have way too much a concentration of metal and water in your chart. So a little bit fire, this Yang fire is like the sunshine. It's not playing the role of refining metal because Yin Metal doesn't need to be refined. It's more playing the role of curing this tendency of being too cold and damp in the winter time, or kind of fall season transitioning to winter. This sunshine just making sure this whole bazi is more balanced and kind of not leaning towards the cold side. But between the two, primary necessity for a good bazi chart is a strong and usable Yin Metal's energy. This guy just plays a supplemental role. If it's end up hurting this guy, for example, here's a Yang fire and here's a Yin Metal. Because of that special combination relationship, this Yang fire will actually do more damage than good because you reduce the energy and strength of this Yin Metal I really want. In that case, I'd rather it to be something else that makes this Yin Metal better versus hurting it. then I'd rather not to see this guy. So this definitely like a supplemental secondary role. Last but not least is October. It's a young earth type of month. So suddenly the qi, the first half of the month will still be more kind of metal focused, but especially the second half of the month is going to be very earth for focus until you transition to November, which is a water focused month. So in this case, your biggest headache is, again, I said, Yin water does not like too much earth. So you have too much earth as the biggest problem to be solved. And how do we solve the problem? Number one strategy is to use Yin Metal, because you place this bridging role, because you change this dynamic from earth directly suppresses and reduces water to earth grows metal and metal grows water. So you introduce this middleman to mitigate that earth negative impact on water. So that's the primary role. On top of it, this is like a bonus point. If you have a strong enough usable metal in your chart, and this is like, I'm going to use both techniques to tackle the problem. My primary medicine works great, and I'm going to use a secondary medicine of wood, because young wood suppresses earth. So wood also can deliver the same result of reducing and curing this earth problem, because I don't want too much earth in my chart. And this combination just saying that in this young earth month, this wood might be too dried up. It needs water to make this wood strong enough to do its job of suppressing and reducing the strength of this earth. That's what it is. It's a partnership between water and wood, so that wood can do its job of suppressing and make this biggest headache under control. But maybe most of you might notice how the relationship between metal and wood is metal suppresses wood. They're natural enemies. How can I use natural enemies in my chart? That's why you have to really be careful with the prioritization, like who's a primary, who's a secondary. In this case, same as the prior month, I want to make sure this number one guy is not hurt by anything. It's in a good foundational strong condition. This is icing on the cake. On the condition, positional placement of those energies are not interfering with this primary guy. Those are just bonus to kind of help him solve the same problem of too much earth. That's all it is. But between the two, this Yin Metal is definitely a better route to solve the problem. So that's kind of the theoretical approach to see what element will be really preferred to show up in your Bazi to make it a really good Bazi chart. But the main takeaway is, for any Bazi analysis, the first step is to understand the focal point. Who are we talking about, right? Like for today's instance, in water, you have to understand these core traits and personalities to know. Naturally, just even though I want to be reduced, I prefer to have wood and fire showing up in my chart to reduce me, versus having a bunch of earth element muddying up the pure and pretty stream. So that's what it's about. And then this is another example of why does young metal actually like to see yin fire to refine it, versus why does Yin Metal prefer water to sift through it. So those are just some cases to show you guys Bazi is truly a kind of a system about nature, about how the world and the universe work. It's based on the relationship of those 5 elements. It's quite fascinating. Thank you for watching, and next video I'll share some case studies for Yin Water born in the fall season. Thank you for watching. Bye.